The IdeaPad Flex 5 gives you more creative choices, by blending performance, connectivity, entertainment, and affordability with a sleek design and feel. Build quality is about as good as you can get without moving to all metal. The keyboard deck is rubberized, and the outside is built solidly, no creaking. The hinge is strong, but it opens up almost all the way with one hand, tilts towards the end. The overall design is darn near similar to last year's model, but built a bit more premium. One exhaust vent at the back, but as you'll see later it really doesn't need two. I mainly focused on CPU performance, as benchmarks for this flavor of Vega 6 are all over the place already, and given the thermals, I saw performance should be what you'll find elsewhere. Long story short, roughly 10% faster than the 3500U's Vega 8 at less power, 15W versus 25W. The benchmarks speak for themselves, but I was very surprised at what this thing was capable of. I ran these on the included USB-C wall charger, which was a surprising inclusion considering the laptop has a barrel jack for power. The only thing to keep in mind is that this was tested when my room temperature was in the upper 70s to lower 80s, so you could see the temp results as a worst-case scenario. 77C absolute max during Geekbench is crazy for this thing, especially considering how thin it is. Never got too loud, either. The fan isn't whiny at all. The camera is acceptable. Nothing to write home about, but it'll work well enough for video calls. The battery is excellent. While browsing the web and watching videos, I have been consistently draining 10% per hour of use. That 10-hour claim from Lenovo seems pretty spot on. With the AMD Ryzen 5000 hardware inside, the Flex 5 is one of the most powerful 14-inch budget laptops you can get right now. It's also a convertible and doesn't compromise on the build quality, inputs, audio, I/O, or battery life, but it does come with one major deal breaker: a dim and washed out display with a 60% sRGB panel. That's just not for me, and I'd rather pay extra or even sacrifice on the performance just to get a usable display instead. The Flex 5 is a convertible with a touchscreen that can go up to 360 degrees on the back. That means this can be used as a laptop or tablet or something in between, and supports finger touch and pen input. At the same time, at nearly 3.4 pounds in weight and a fairly hefty format, expect to primarily use this as a regular notebook, on the desk, or on the lap, as the whole thing is rather heavy and awkward to hold as a tablet. Tent mode for movies could be useful, though. The other noticeable differences are in the color options, as this IdeaPad Flex 5 comes in a standard silver, while the IdeaPad 5 came in a unique blue, as well as the choice in the materials used for the lid. With this 2021 Flex 5, Lenovo went with an all-plastic construction, with a smoother finishing for the lid and underside, and a more textured rugged finishing for the interior. That's good news, as I feel these materials will age well. The plastic lid isn't going to chip away as easily as the painted metal on the 2020 IdeaPad 5 that I had, and the interior seems to be able to handle the mild abuse from my watch's wristband without a glimpse. Furthermore, the silver color perfectly hides any smudges and finger oil, so all in all, if you're looking for a durable no-hassle laptop that you can grab along to work or school, this is a solid candidate. Lenovo didn't skimp on the build quality either, as the lid feels strong and barely bulges when pressed, but there is some flex in the keyboard, not the kind you'll probably notice with daily use, but the kind you can easily show when pressing harder on the keys. I can live with that in this price range. As far as practicality goes, this sits well enough on the desk, thanks to the grippy rubber feet on the belly, and Lenovo made sure to blunt and dull all the edges and corners. The hinges also do a good job at keeping the screen as set up, but their stiffness, paired with the lack of any recess or nub on the front lip for you to grab the screen from, means that you can't easily lift up the display single-handedly here, and you'll probably need to use both your hands to do it. The interior is spacious and offers enough room for a full keyboard and a mid-sized clickpad, with enough armrest around. The keyboard is flanked by speaker grills on each side, and the status LEDs and the power button have been moved to the sides, out of the way when watching a movie at dark. I sure wish everyone would do that. I also appreciate that the thermal module benefits from a wide open intake grill on the bottom and blows the hot air behind the screen, away from the user, and not into the screen and in your face, as with many other modern 14-inch ultra-portable. At the same time, though, a taller back foot would have helped the airflow under the laptop, as the intakes are choked up in this design. Keyboard and trackpad. This Flex 5 gets a standard Lenovo IdeaPad keyboard, the same we've seen on the IdeaPads that I've tested in the past, with the somewhat cheaper feeling plastic keycaps than on the higher tier models. No worries though, I still find this to be a good typer, quick, quiet, and accurate once you get a hold of its mushier feedback, the kind you should expect from a portable laptop with short stroke keys. The layout is standard and basic as well, without the extra column of function keys that some other 14 inches offer these days, as the space on the sides is occupied by the up-firing speakers. Instead, PG up, PGDN, home and end functionality are secondaries bound to the arrow keys in this case. The keys are also easy to tell apart, with the white writing on a dark gray background and backlit. The illumination is rather dim, and with the way the LEDs are positioned under each key, the light creeps out from underneath most of the keycaps, but at least the backlighting is fairly uniform, and Lenovo included caps lock and numlock dedicated LED indicators. The screen was the reason I returned the IdeaPad 5 that I got last year, and, spoiler alert, the reason I'm going to return this Flex 5 as well. Color coverage is still a culprit on this Kai-Mei panel that Lenovo provides here, with approximately 60% sRGB gamut coverage. That might not mean much to you, but to my eyes, reds are especially flawed on this laptop, to the point where they look like washed oranges. I've added some pictures next to two other panels that are available on cheap laptops these days. The one on the left is approximately 90% sRGB and around 250 nits, and the one on the right is approximately 100% sRGB and around 400 nits, and in the middle is this IdeaPad Flex hardware and performance. Our test model is a top-spec configuration of the Lenovo IdeaPad Flex 514ALC05, with an AMD Ryzen 7 5700U processor, 16 GB of DDR4 3200 MHz of RAM, 512 GB of fast Micron NVMe storage, and the Radeon Vega 8 graphics embedded into the AMD APU. Specs-wise, this iteration of the IdeaPad Flex 5 is based on the early 2021 AMD Ryzen 5000U hardware platform, with options starting with the 4C, 8T Ryzen 3 5300U processor, and going up to the 8C, 16T Ryzen 7 5700U on this unit. As far as I can tell, only Zen 2 plus Lucian platforms are going to be available on this lineup, with Zen 3 Cezanne hardware reserved for other Lenovo models. That's not really something that should concern you, even with the improvements in IPC and various optimizations of Zen 3, as the Lucian hardware is still plenty fast enough for daily use, better optimized than the Renoir Ryzen 4000 platforms from 2020, more capable in GPU loads with the updated Vega graphics, as well as overall more affordable and more widespread. In fact, for now, Cezanne laptops are hardly available, but you can get Lucian specs in a few different models throughout the world. Noise, heat, connectivity, speakers, and others. Lenovo went with a dual heat pipe and one large fan thermal module on this configuration, a slightly more complex solution than what's normally implemented at this level, and identical to the one tested in the clamshell IdeaPad 5. This design allows the Ryzen 7 5700U APU to run smoothly at 24+W in demanding loads and tests, while at the same providing fair cooling with daily use, keeping the fan quiet most of the time, with only warm exterior temperatures. The APU does heat up to 80 and 90 degrees in demanding chores and games, and a fair bit of that heat also spreads onto the exterior chassis. With games, we recorded temperatures in the low 50s around the WER keys, on top of the AMD processor, and low 50s around the radiator, but also 60+ on the underside, around the thermal module. That's with the laptop sitting on the desk, ambient temperatures of around 24°C, and the fan spinning at around 39 to 40 decibels in our tests. At least the hot air is blown out behind the screen, and not into the screen. However, lifting up the laptop in order to improve the airflow underneath has a major impact on the internal temperatures, allowing them to drop by as much as 15 to 25 degrees in some games, and also helps shave 2 to 7 degrees of the outside, so this is definitely something to consider when playing games or running in demanding workloads on this machine. Battery life. There's a 52.5 watt-hours battery inside the IdeaPad Flex 5, which is okay for a laptop in this price segment, but smaller than the average size available with 14 inches these days. Even so, with the efficient AMD hardware implementation and screen, this notebook lasts for a fair while on a charge. Our model came with a compact 65W charger that plugs in via USB-C. It's a dual-piece design with a compact brick and long cables, and a full charge takes about 2 hours. As mentioned already, the laptop also offers a classic barrel plug DC input, and Lenovo might decide to offer the barrel plug charger instead in some regions. In fact, that's what I'd go with if you're planning on hooking up peripherals via USB-C on this laptop, as that would leave the single USB-C port on this laptop available to you, and not have it blocked for charging. Price and availability: the Lenovo IdeaPad Flex 514ALC05 is available in some stores around the world in multiple versions. Over here, this tested configuration with the Ryzen 7 5700U processor, 16GB of RAM, and 512GB SSD retails for around €800 before any discounts. The same, but with a Ryzen 5 5500, goes for around €700, and I'd reckon the Ryzen 3 5300U models should follow up soon. This updated version of the IdeaPad Flex 5 is not yet available on the US Lenovo website right now, but you can find the 2020 model built on a Ryzen 7 4700U processor for a little over $600, which is a competitive price. The 4700U is still a competitive 8C processor, but without hyper-threading and without the updated graphics available with the Ryzen 5 7's 5000 hardware. Furthermore, you'll most likely find these discounted here and again, just as I found my unit. Remember that I paid €620 for the refurbished Ryzen 7 5700U, 16GB RAM, 512GB SSD variant tested here, downs from its €800 MSRP. Final thoughts: I doubt I'll be able to find a similar 14-inch laptop with this kind of performance, construction, and battery life for the €620 that I paid for this IdeaPad Flex 5. But despite that, this is going back, because of that screen. It's just too dim and too washed out for me to use on my everyday laptop, and for my use, a half-decent display with 300 pluses of brightness and 100% sRGB is the minimum I could accept. Even so, as long as you can live with this panel that Lenovo puts on this IdeaPad Flex 5 and you can find it for the kind of money that I got mine for, by all means, go and get this. Yes, the hardware runs hot in this budget chassis with demanding loads and games, and yes, this is not as compact or as feature-rich as some of the other 14-inch options out there, but it well compensates for these aspects with its aggressive pricing and the performance it delivers in multi-threaded loads that can properly benefit from the Ryzen 7 8C processor inside. I would still advise on going with the Ryzen 5 5500U configuration here. That's still plenty fast for daily multitasking and some work chores, plus should be easier to find at around €600. At $800, on the other hand, this Flex 5 might not be that appealing as long as you don't have to get the Ryzen hardware, as the market offers more portable and nicer made designs with better screens at that price. Anyway, that wraps up my take on this 2021 Lenovo IdeaPad Flex 5, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about it and whether you agree with my feedback on the screen or not. No fanboyism please, just be honest and let me know which are more important for you in your mid-priced laptop. The performance of the Ryzen platform, or a nicer display that you're not going to resent every time you'll look at those skewed colors.
Hope you enjoyed the video. You guys can initiate a discussion in the comment box, if you have any different opinions about the contents in this video. Be the first to start the debate in the box below. Purchase links related to the products in this video are kept in description. We will be grateful if you could please make your next purchase from that link, as this will help us to grow our channel. Good morning, good evening and good night, whichever part of the world you are from. Don't forget to subscribe to stay connected. I will assure you to make quality and interesting videos in future. This is Jason Peter, signing off.